As Amos Miller faced a preliminary injunction hearing, the Amish farmer was forced to stop selling raw milk in January. State investigators have been aware of Miller selling raw milk since 2016. However, they say he has repeatedly refused to get a permit to sell it. People who came out in support of Miller were vocal about what they say is government overreach.
We need to stand up and say, hands off. Hands off. Government has no business in this private association.
Miller's lead attorney, Robert Barnes, argued to the judge that state inspectors were hiding test results from the public, saying there was no evidence of E. coli at the farm. Barnes also argued that forcing Miller to get a permit to sell raw milk and cheese would force him to stop making other products.
They interpret the raw milk permit as forfeiting your right to make yogurt, to make kefir, to make butter, to make cream, to make smoothies.
We wouldn't know about it if it were not for Jeremy LaFredo, who works for Rebel News. He joins us tonight. Jeremy, thanks so much for coming on. This one story is kind of hard to believe. They're going after an Amish farmer. Who are they exactly?
I wanted to give you guys a little background as to why the Amish are getting behind Trump so big. I mean, huge, like 99% behind Trump, is because these people live a very, very simple existence. And basically, just leave us alone. Let us live. We're not bothering you. Just let us have our lives. I've driven through Amish country. I've visited there many times. Wasn't too far away from my campus. And the food is just like, oh my God, it tastes so fresh. Fresh meat, fresh produce. I wasn't into the raw milk, but some people were. All they want to do is live their lives. And the Biden administration decided they were going to step in along with Monsanto and tell these people, hey, you can't do what you do here because, you know, we've got rules and regulations and this regulation and that regulation. And I'm like, hey, man, we've been here for hundreds of years. We don't need your regulations. You know, we go out and milk the cow and we got milk. We grow our own livestock. We grow our own produce. Back off. Nope, can't do it. Can't do it. So we're going to basically come after you because you're not doing what we want you to do.
We have the U.S. Marshal Service recently raided Amos Miller's organic and holistic farm, demanding he cease operations, and they charged him, as you said, with $300,000 fines, economically crippling the man. And what's happening is you have the armed federal agents are demanding he stop food production because of the meat, and you have him saying, well, you know what, I want to keep farming. So you have this back and forth between the giant empire of the U.S. federal government and this tiny little farm in Birmingham, Pennsylvania.
Man, you're going to put a $300,000 fine on somebody who doesn't even use an automobile. That kind of heavy-handed government pisses people off. You just couldn't leave them alone, could you? And now remember, Pennsylvania, Joe won in 2020, and he only won it by, 30, 40,000 votes at midnight or 3 a.m. But now, you've got this entire army of Amish people who are like, yeah, we've had it. This guy Trump's going to leave us alone.
So they went after gyms, organic farmers, and churches. So maybe they're against anything that's wholesome and edifying that makes you stronger and healthier and in favor of everything that diminishes you and makes you more dependent. I'm just sensing a theme here. Do you see this?
Yeah, and another thing the community says is that they're coming after Amos to set an example. They're coming after an independent, successful farmer who takes out the government middlemen and provides food directly to his community and his people. Now, by taking out the middleman, by taking out the government, you're taking power away and taking leverage away from the government and putting that power and leverage in the hands of the community and the farmers and the people. And another thing I'll add is Amos's farm doesn't use any gasoline or any fertilizer. Now, as you know, these commodities have become very expensive because of Biden's policies in regards to the war in Ukraine and Russia. So Amos has completely eliminated.
Does that remind you, like every time they're complaining about baby disposal and they put on it handmade, whatever, the garb. Look at the garb these little girls or women are wearing. You know, they got the bonnets, they've got the long robe-ish type things. They live that life. You're not looking to liberate them. You are interfering. You're the government. And we're not here to help. We're here to ruin your lives.
Eliminated any risk coming from the international or domestic politics of the Biden administration, and they're coming after him for it.
Maybe if he promises to put more chemicals in the milk that turn kids, they'll lay off.
I think you know what he was talking about there, right? Yeah. I hope you got what he said.
Did any of the federal marshals decline to raid an Amish organic farm on principle, or did they all just go along with this? Do you know?
All I know is that many federal agents did not decline to go and did go along with it and raided the farm and took inventory of Amos's farm to make sure that he doesn't sell or produce any more meat.
We're for law enforcement, broadly speaking, but there's such a thing as conscience, okay? And they should not have gone along with this. When they tell you to raid an organic Amish farm, that's when you bow out, okay? I would say. Jeremy, I appreciate your story that you did. It's shocking to believe it's real, but it is.
Yes. So I believe it. It just keeps happening. If the Democrats get in power, they want to rule every part of your life, except baby removal. They want you to just be able to do that anytime you want. These are the same people who want to freely dispose of babies, but they want to make sure you're not consuming too much raw milk. They want to make sure that, hey, I don't know, how you guys are slaughtering these cows, but you got to do something about that. Oh, your fruit, you haven't put pesticides on them. Somebody like eat it and stay healthy instead of eat it and catch some disease. Some of the most healthy people in the world come from Amish country because they're not susceptible to all the crap that we're fed. They've lived a simple existence. Why did the government have to bother them with regulation after regulation after regulation? Elon Musk, who they fear, is going to tell you about these regulations and why they just can't leave people alone.
I've had many conversations with President Trump, who is very much aligned in thinking that we need significant government reform. We need to get the government out of people's lives, really, and have America be the land of liberty, which is that is what has made America great, is the land of liberty and opportunity. So you maximize people's personal freedom. And we make sure that.
Can you imagine that would be a bad thing? To maximize people's personal freedom, let them live their lives? How can that be a Democrat or Republican perspective? That should be everybody's perspective. Just let me live my life. Why are you getting in the way?
Getting ahead is a function of hard work and talent, and an honest day's work. That's really what should get people ahead. And that's the only thing, I mean, I got to.
So in this cut, he's going to tell you about just the idiotic regulations that they put on him for, launching satellites and stuff.
A bunch of sort of nutty stories, some of them, I guess, are kind of funny. There's, we had to do this. SpaceX had to do this study to see if Starship would hit a shark, and I'm like, it's a big ocean, there's a lot of sharks. It's not impossible, but it's very unlikely. And I said, well, you have to, this is I think from National Marine Fisheries, one of the NIMF it's called. They were like, well, you have to do the study on whether you can hit a shark. We're like, what? And then we said, okay, fine, we'll do the analysis. And then, well, can you give us the shark data? They're like, no, we can't give you the shark data. We're like, okay, well, then we're in a bit of a quandary. How do we solve this shark probability issue? And they said, well, we could give it to our Western division, but we don't trust them. And I'm like, am I in a comedy sketch here? They're worried about the shark density data. Like the people who hunt sharks for shark fins somehow getting their hands on the shark data, And so eventually, I think we got the data and we could run the analysis to say like, yeah, the sharks are going to be fine. But they wouldn't let us proceed with launch until we did this crazy shark data, and then we thought, okay, now we're done. Then they said, but what about whales? I'm like, when you look at a picture of the Pacific, what percentage of the surface area of the Pacific do you see as whale? Because I look at a picture, I don't see any. It's like you can't. Where's a whale?
You can see why they hate this guy. Because somewhere they've hired these bureaucrats to work in these departments, and these departments have all kinds of authority to make you jump through hoops, say you can't serve raw milk, say you have to slaughter an animal a certain way, say you have to put pesticides on your food, say you have to let me know how your spaceship going into air for the benefit of all man is going to affect the sharks and whales. These people are absolute nuts. And thank God, there are people like Elon Musk who are ready to just basically shred that government.
And honestly, if the ship did hit a whale, it's like, honestly, that whale had it coming, because it's like the odds are so low. It's like Final Destination, the whale edition. It's like fate had it in for that whale, and so we have to do the whale analysis. And it's like, okay, yeah, the whales will be fine too, it goes on. And then there's like, well, what if the rocket goes underwater, then explodes, and then the whales have hearing damage? Like, this is real. This is actually, and we're like, look, if we could make a rocket go underwater and be a submarine, that would be like a feat of physics we could not accomplish, okay? This is not how it works. So anyway, just one like crazy thing after another, where so this is why I'm really feeling the pain of the overregulation.
Hey everybody, this is
All right, so overregulation and what we're talking about today, and Trump's going to be and Lancaster is going to be talking to the Amish people. These are people who haven't had much regulation until Biden decided to step on them. So a lot of people would ask me, why is he holding a rally in Lancaster of all places? Because that's an untouched market. That's another group of people who haven't historically voted. They just lived their lives. And now they're coming out in droves, absolute droves. So some of you know who Scott Presler is. Listen to what Scott says about it.
Presler and Dill. Guys, we're here at the Green Dragon Farmers Market in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And something really cool has happened. Dill met this Amish businessman who is just very invested in saving the country. He knows a lot of people. And when Dill talked about the opportunity to register more voters, the businessman said, listen, you give us voter registrations, hundreds of them, he'll get them out. And guys, these are voter registration plus mail-in ballot applications. So this one action of Dill reaching out to this gentleman, courting him, talking to him, who knows, this could translate into hundreds, perhaps even more voter registrations. And there is a sense of urgency. The last day to register is on the 21st of October. And so I think we're at the right place at the right time, and we're about to go deliver these. So wish us luck. Bye.
Let's go. Kamala Harris. All right, so we're at the right place at the right time. The last day to register the vote is when? Tomorrow. Where's Trump today? Lancaster. I'm sure they're doing a huge registration drive. Like, y'all need to register. We know you probably haven't done this before, but we're going to show you exactly how to register. So if you saw what I wrote as my headline title there, it was about Christians having to unite. And I thought to myself, you know what? Today's Sunday. Let's go to church a little bit. I'm sorry for some of you guys who won't want to hear this, but we're going to go to church for like the next 5 minutes before Trump gets on stage. You see, the Amish are a very, very, very conservative group of Christians, which is why I believe they are being targeted. And I've just had it. I've had it with people targeting Christians. I've had it with what Kamala said on stage. There was a long interview on Fox and Friends this morning where those two kids who got basically thrown out of Kamala's rally, it was perfectly clear. She didn't make a mistake. She pointed those kids out and said, you need to go to another rally. She didn't want them there. So you, as a Christian, me as a Christian, you should have a big problem, and you should be supporting these Amish people, and you should be supporting all these Christians who are now being, seriously, she wants to oppress you. Molly Shannon put out some sort of tweet and said that Catholics are like a cancer on progressivism. Progressivism. A cancer. And then I had a Christian man say, well, she's not really wrong. And I'm like, dude, how can, and I'll never do this myself, but how is it that Christians are willing to call other Christians who, it makes no sense. See the platform that these people stand on and call yourself a Christian and vote for them? I don't know. But let's go to church and you'll hear from some people and hear what they have to say.
Holds a rally. And somebody in the crowd yells, Jesus is Lord. And Kamala Harris' response was, you at the wrong rally. Now listen to me. For all you believers out there and Christians that believe in the Lord and believe in the word, after hearing what came out this woman's mouth, if you still support this woman, the Bible talks about there's a place I prepared for you. Yeah. All you Democrat pastors that preaching to the congregation that they need to go down there November 5th and vote for Kamala Harris.
I don't understand the black churches. I just simply do not understand the black churches who call themselves men of the cloth, who are leading a flock of people and telling them, yes, go do this, vote for Kamala Harris. It makes absolutely no sense how these people can stand in a pulpit on Sunday and tell people to go support the people who drive the big blue bus that want to, facilitate baby removal.
Oh, God, see, I have a place prepared for you. Yeah. You heard me? See, I've been trying to tell y'all for a long time, these people policies and the things that they stand behind is not God-like. These people don't love God. They don't care about Jesus. They don't love God at all. Everything they do and stand for is against God. That's why I don't understand why a lot of you folk that say y'all believe in God and y'all believe in the word and support this lady. How can you stand by somebody after saying what they said? Jesus is Lord, and she telling them they at the wrong rally, and y'all gonna take yourself down there and vote for this lady, and at the same time go to church on Sunday and be praising God.
Come on.
Make it make sense.
It can't.
Make that make sense.
Like I said, this might step on some people's toes today. I might see less views, but I don't care. It's Sunday, and this whole thing just riled me up. When I saw what they're doing to the Amish people, these simple people who don't bother anybody. You never see anything on television where 4 people were assaulted in the no. They just live their lives. They don't even use electricity.
You're supposed to stand on business behind God's word. You know the times we in right now. You know we in Revelations right now. Y'all know, for all my people out there who know the word, y'all know what's going on right now as against good and evil. Y'all know what the business is. And you say you going out there and support this woman after what you just heard? Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. A lot of y'all going to hell with gasoline draws on. Oh, Lord. A lot of y'all going to burn like Usher, baby, burn. You heard me. You better get on the right side. I'm trying to tell you.
So I do not believe that you can love the Lord, read your Bible, and call yourself a Christian and vote for Kamala Harris. If you can look at all the things that the left side stands for and say that it aligns with the Bible, then you need to rethink that because you are being lied to. If you can vote for someone who stands against God's word on abortion, on LGBTQ, on prayer in schools, and so much more, then I question if you truly know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior.
She's saying it. She's bringing it. People are going to have to answer for it.
And yes, I said that. If you get offended, then take it up with God because...
Exactly. Yes, I said it. I meant it. And you got a problem with it. Take it up with him. Love you, girl.
There is no question anymore between the two sides. At this point, it is good versus evil that we are voting for. This country is one nation under God, and as Christians, it is our obligation to help keep it.
You may not like Trump and agree with what Trump says or what he stands for, but I can't sit back and watch you if you call yourself a born-again believer and are not deeply offended by what Kamala Harris said yesterday at her rally. The fact that somebody said Jesus is Lord, because he is Lord, you guys. And the fact that that Kamala said, oh, you're at the wrong rally, laughing. No, I'm deeply offended if you think that was okay. Because to mock Jesus Christ like Kamala did, that's not okay.
No, it's not okay. In fact, you're right. I am at the wrong rally. Thanks for letting me know. Let me dip out of here before the lightning comes. I don't want to be here when stuff descends on you. Because you're right. I would rather you tell me up front, hey, get out. I don't believe in that. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
You're not okay. You're sick in the head if you think that that's okay. I want somebody who isn't going to be openly mocking the Lord. Kamala apparently is okay with mocking who Jesus is.
I think she made a huge mistake. Huge. Catastrophic. The polls can't catch it right now because it's too late. So after she did that, after she told those people, you're in the wrong rally, you need to go down the street. What she didn't think was going to happen, in addition to these people who you've seen thus far talk about it, an entire trend on TikTok was birthed. And people began singing and posting videos of them singing about Kamala Harris saying that blasphemous stuff. Check this out. It's Sunday, so we're going to go to church real quick here.
Jesus, and welcome at Kamala's rally. I say, Jesus, welcome at Kamala's rally. Jesus, welcome at Kamala's rally. Calling on man, oh, cause he's welcome over here. And he's welcome over here. He's welcome over here, my God. Oh, my Jesus, you are welcome over here. But you are welcome over here, my God. I see myself. Jesus, you are.
She didn't see that coming. The pollsters didn't see that coming. Obama didn't see that coming. None of those people who were working with her campaign saw any of this coming. And she has done something to basically help people on the right coalesce. We can wrap our arms around that. In addition to all the financial stuff, it's like, man, you just took a shot at the wrong dude. You just told Jesus he wasn't welcome in your rally. And you just pissed off everybody at this point. So I'm sure that, there might be some trolls in here and, say what you got to say. We don't care. But if you are a Democrat or an independent who now feel ostracized because of what you heard her say as they sang in that song, we got room for you over here, brother and sister. I'm not a pastor, but all I know is if you believe in God, today's Sunday, if you feel like you've been ostracized and told to take a walk this way.
In our country. And if you could cut it, you would have a surplus without even going into growth. But growth, we will grow. We're going to bring companies and jobs in at levels that you've never seen. And you would never be able to do it because you're not a believer in tariffs. The only way, let me tell you, the only way you can do it is through the threat of tariffs. It's the only way you can do it.
Can we come back to one thing on that? Deal making. You look out across this room, there's some big businesses, but a lot of small ones.
A lot of
By the
big
way,
ones.
you've given us a lot of examples of things where you've negotiated with the heads of big businesses.
Right.
Give you an example. When you put the tariffs on China, much smaller than you're planning to do at the moment, when you put them on, Apple came, you negotiated a difference for them.
I did.
That's much harder for small business people. Isn't the problem with the way that you do these kind of deals? You're bound to deal with the big companies. It's the small companies who get hit by all these different things and can't find exceptions.
Oh, we have exceptions. No, we had an exception. I gave Apple an exception. Tim Cook is a great business.
Apple is not a small company. And
No.
Please
no,
don't
but
give it
but
to
he
Cook.
but here's what
The
happened.
question is about small business.
Yes, but I
What
would
will
make
you
it
do for them?
No, but we have a very talented group of people. Bob Lighthizer did a very good job. We had great people. We had central casting. These are great, and a large group of people. We made exceptions. In the case of Apple, they need an exception. You know why? Because of Samsung. He came to me, he said, Samsung makes a product similar to ours, very good product, the phones and other things. And because they're in South Korea, they don't have the tariffs. Because we're in China, we have the tariffs. I said, you happen to be right. You're not going to be able to compete. I said, look, I'm going to give you a 1-year break, but I want you to start building your factories in this country, whether it's Texas or any other place, anywhere in the country. And he said, what does that mean? I said, you have everything in China. I want you to move it from China back to our country. And he started doing that. And he built a factory, a big one in Texas. He built another one. And this was all a process. It was all happening. But I did give him an exception. And the reason was, he said, as soon as he said Samsung, I said, how is that product compared to yours? He said, it's a good product. I said, then you really can't compete. You can't have a 25 or 50% tariff and compete, right? Yeah. And I said, I'm giving you an exception. And I did it for many companies. We had some, but the ultimate
businesses come and see.
I know,
you.
but
That was the question.
But we do it for small businesses too. We do it for small business. I'll give you another example. We have a man who I didn't know, but he came to me. He was at a meeting, and he built kitchen cabinets. And he was, pretty big in the business. That's all he did is build kitchen cabinets. He said, sir, China and South Korea are building kitchen cabinets for 1/3 of what I can make them. I said, what's the quality? They're not as good, but they're good enough. I can't compete. I'm going out of business. I have 2,000 people that work for me. I'm going out of business. I put a 25% tariff still on kitchen cabinets. I saw the guy 3 days ago. He said, I'm the man that saw you about kitchen cabinets. You saved my company when you did the tariff, and you saved thousands of jobs. And my company is now doing very well. And he started to cry. This guy hasn't cried too much, I will tell you. He said, you saved my company. There's nobody that could have done that.
Maybe I can ask you then about something else. Yeah. Business people here in this room, business people, capital markets, they all like the rule of law. They like certainty. The Chinese, who you mentioned, other dictators,
right?
They don't like it when things go wrong. They like it when things go wrong in America. If you look at the events of January the 6th, 2021, it showed to many people America's democracy was unruly and violent. Only 3 weeks to go to the election. Will you commit now to respecting and encouraging a peaceful transfer of power?
Well, you had a peaceful transfer of power.
You had a peaceful transfer of power. You had a peaceful... Come on, President Trump. You had a peaceful transfer of power compared with Venezuela, but it was by far the worst transfer of power for a long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because this is what they like to do. This is what they like to do. It's very interesting.
Question, President Trump, is would you respect the decision?
When I found out about this interview, I did a little check. He's a man that has not been a big Trump fan over the years. So I had a choice. Do I do this interview or not? I'm glad I did it. But do I do this interview or do I disappoint a lot of people? Because I know a lot of people in the audience. But his view is very different than mine. Let me just say,
I'm asking
March, we had a term, peacefully and patriotically. These were people. If you think an election is crooked, and I do, 100%, if you think the day it comes when you can't protest, you take a look at the Democrats, they protested 2016, they're still protesting it. Nobody talks about them. But if we protest, we want to have honest elections. You think the last election was honest? Well, no, do you think it was
all the
on?
times it went to courts? The courts.
No,
sided-
it didn't go. They went to court, and the courts all said you don't have standing. Nobody had standing, and it's hard, frankly, after an election for a judge. But they all said you don't. Nobody ever had standing. But the facts, if you take a look, I'd show you hundreds of pages of facts. People were angry. People went there, and I'll tell you what, they never show that. The primary scene in Washington was hundreds of thousands, the largest group of people I've ever spoken before, and I've spoken before, and it was love and peace. And some people went to the Capitol, and a lot of strange things happened there. A lot of strange things with people being waved into the Capitol by police, with people screaming, go in, with that never got into trouble. You know, I don't want to mention names, but you know who they are. A lot of strange things happened, but you had a peaceful, very peaceful. I left the morning that I was supposed to leave. I went to Florida, and you had a very peaceful transfer. This was not and I'll tell you what, those people that did go down, which was a tiny fraction of the people that went to Washington. I mean, you're talking about a very, very small, because hundreds of thousands of people, and I don't know what you had, 500, 600, 700 people go down to the Capitol. But those people, that was not one of those people had a gun. Nobody was killed except for Ashley Babbitt. She was killed. She was shot in the head by a policeman that what he did was horrible.
President Trump.
So I think we should be allowed to disagree on that. And obviously, you see by the reaction in this room, there's a lot of other people that
Let's return to one other big subject you bring up repeatedly, immigration.
Yeah.
I know it's a very emotive issue for you, but just from the point of view of business people here, you look at the full effect of taking a lot of people out of the workforce, removing a lot of people. The Congressional Budget Office is banking on the fact that there'll be $9 trillion added to the GDP of America over the next 10 years by immigrants. You want to stop that process. For all the people who run businesses in the audience, I'm just focusing on the economic thing, are you prepared to say, look, it's fine to have a slightly smaller economy in exchange for having the immigration control?
Okay, simple answer. I want a lot of people to come into our country, but I want them to come in legally. I don't want to have murderers.
That means you will have to deport. You know, you are talking about deporting 11 million people. That is a lot of people.
Okay, you ready? It came out last week that 425,000 people are horrible criminals at the highest level. But it came out that 13,099 were let in during their administration. They tried to say longer, wrong. Over the last 3.5 years, 13,000 plus people came in, murderers. They're in jail for murder. Some were having the death penalty. They were all released into our country. 13,099 people were released into our country. We had drug dealers released. We had street gangs released. Look at what's happening in Aurora. But now I don't have to go with Aurora anymore. Look at what happened last night in Times Square, where rough migrants from all over the place. You know, it's not just South America. We have people coming in from the Congo, large numbers from the Congo and Africa. They came in, as of last night, I was speaking to Tom Homan, 180 countries. People came in. They came from prisons and jails. They came from mental institutions and insane asylums, a step above. They came from the terrorists. We had large numbers of terrorists come in. When I was president, we had the strongest border in the history of our country. I built hundreds of miles of wall, and walls work, by the way. Hundreds of miles. We had the best numbers we've ever had. Now we have the worst numbers. And here's the problem. We have some of the worst criminals in the world coming in. Now, Venezuela, their crime has gone down at levels that nobody's ever seen before, because they've taken their street gangs and their drug dealers and they've emptied their prisons. Not fully, because they can't get enough buses. They've emptied their prisons. They load up the buses and they drive them into the United States, and they're dropping their prisoners into our country. Their crime is down. Their numbers are crazy how low it's dropped. I heard 72, 74%. They've taken their gangs. They've taken their criminals off the street. They've taken their people out of mental institutions, which cost them a fortune, and they've taken them and dropped them into the United States of America. Those people have to be returned. We can't live with thousands of murderers and not
The issue I asked you about was the idea that if you reduce immigration, every economist will tell you, if you have fewer people, there is a smaller economy.
I like immigration, but they've got to come in legally.
Okay. Well, let's finish on two.
No, I want to make sure. Look, I don't want to have people that have killed 9 people and they're a sadistic, crazy nut job. We have to have people that can love our country, that can that will obey the laws, everything else. You have hundreds of thousands of criminals being dropped in, and Venezuela is one country. Look at what they have done, though, in Aurora. They've taken over apartment complexes. They've gone into the real estate business. See, they're like us, except they've done it with MK, whatever the hell they're called, right? I mean, they have weapons that are so sophisticated, our military doesn't have them. They've taken over parts of cities. In Colorado, you have a place called beautiful Aurora. Take a look at what's happened to Springfield, Ohio, where they dropped 30,000 people into a community of 50,000 people, and it's total bedlam. The hospitals can't be used anymore by the residents. The schools can't be used by the children that were there last year because other people that don't even speak the language.
The issue I asked you about, many companies here have a shortage of labor.
Yeah, that's good. We'll take care of that. We're going to get people in here rapidly, and they're going to be people that want to be in here, and they're going to be people that can love our country and won't kill people because they don't like the way they look. These are killers. By the way, some of these killers are among the most evil killers. They will look at you down, the beautiful woman there, they'll look at you and they will kill you. These are seriously sick people. And no, I don't want them in our country. And they are in our country right now. And they're in there because Kamala Harris, who's our border czar, is an incompetent person.
For the record, as you know, the crime rate is lower. Can I finish with 2 questions? The first, you just said it, you don't do old. You own and run businesses.
Yeah.
Would you appoint a CEO who was 78? Give you a
Some of this, I would. Depends on this. I'd make people like Biden, who's in bad shape. I wouldn't appoint him. He's 81 or 82. He's 4 years older. But I'd appoint. I know some of the smartest people I know. I know a man that made all of his money from the time he was 80 to 90, and he was a failure all his life. He was in the drinks business, the different.
Strangely, you didn't bring this up when you were running against Joe Biden.
No, I never attacked him for his age. In fact, I used to defend him on his age. I attacked him for his lack of competence.
I've asked you all these questions.
I never did. By the way, just because I think it's important, and I know you do too. I know so many people in their 80s that are among. Bernie Marcus is 95. He founder of Home Depot. You have that conversation with him. He's just as sharp as he mentally. He's just as sharp as he ever was. He's 95. I can tell you that in their 90s. I don't want to get into the 90s stuff, but you know what? I know many people in their 80s. I know guys in their 80s that won't leave the company, like family companies where they don't want the kids to take over because they're much more competent than their kids. I know them both, right? So no, I would have no problem. And you do have another factor. You know, we've had some of our great
on the Supreme Court. You just said
some of our great world leaders are in the 80s, and if you look throughout history, some of our greatest world leaders were in their 80s. No, that would bother me. But you know, I took 2 cognitive tests, and I aced them both. I think that, frankly, people, regardless, should take, if they're 50 or 40, I think people should take cognitive tests. Not because of the age, but because of something else. Now, here's the problem. They say it's unconstitutional, okay? But I would love to see cognitive tests. I don't think she could pass a cognitive test. I mean, I've watched. I don't think she could pass a cognitive test.
President Trump, you've gone over many issues on this.
We've covered a lot of territory.
I asked you many questions about things. One thing I haven't asked at all about is the state of the race.
Yeah.
And I had a question for you. On election night, which state would you look at first? Which state do you think this race is going to be decided by?
So they say Pennsylvania, I would say most. I think we're doing very well there. I think you look at Michigan too, and I'm doing very well there. You know, we don't have to look necessarily, the votes are starting to come in now. So you look at polls, but you can also look at the votes that are being cast right now. People get a pretty good indication. And based, as we discussed backstage, you know, based on the votes that are coming in so far, we're doing very well. I mean, we're way up in Pennsylvania, we're way up in Michigan. We're doing very well in Arizona. I saw Arizona. In fact, somebody said they're going to pull the plug in Arizona. They're going to give it up because it looks like we're quite a ways ahead. I think we're doing well. Look, this is a party, the Republican Party, of common sense. Forget about conservative, liberal. We're, let's say conservative, but we're really a party of, we need borders, we need fair elections, we don't want men playing in women's sports, we don't want transgender operations without parental consent. You know, there's so many things, but it's 99.9% is common sense. It really is common sense. And I like to say it, I don't know if anyone said it in the past, but I say we're really a party of common sense, and we want to have great people in our country. I want to have a lot of people come in so that you have your choice and so that they have choice. I want to, you know, I have a good heart.
The floor with the Breakfast Club. This, even though they're supposed to be independent, but we know they are Democrat shills. In fact, a lot of people think they're being paid by Kamala's campaign because he did this town hall with her that was an absolute clown show. It basically should have been an infomercial for her entire campaign. That's how soft they went on her. And they always go soft on anyone who's a Democrat and are buddy with them. But if it is a Republican, they just try to hit them with everything they got. But of course, they always look like clowns. They even look like clowns when Jill Stein, the Green Party, came. Dems are out to take out the Green Party because their voters, that's what they share voters, and so they are terrified because Kamala Harris is currently losing in every battleground state, and even in Nevada, the early vote is a bloodbath for the Democrats. But again, you guys are not going to miss this. Make sure you subscribe to my Melanie Off Script. The link will be below.
Inflation is not down nearly enough. You can bring 2.5%. You can bring inflation down significantly, and I think if we had an energy independent country, it would really help.
Is that 2.5%? I was going to ask, you know, a lot of people feel that Trump is racist. And what do you say to that? You know, in 73, of course, it was when he got sued for not running to African Americans, and 89 when he took out the ad in the paper.
Do you see him trying to read down and look at his thing? So they have these pre-done things to try to, like, these gotcha moments. And then they try to put clips later.
I think that's ridiculous. I've known this man for 16 years. And, you know, you can go to each of those incidents and, you know, there was never any proof of anything with the houses that you're talking about.
He settled that for that, though.
Yeah, they settled that. And there was no admission of anything there. You know, Central Park 5, there were so many people. You had a governor, Democrat, DA who prosecuted the guys, and they admitted to it. There were a lot of people in New York.
They were exonerated and freed, and there was never an apology, never sorry, never a
are we really still talking?
Look at somebody and what they actually have done. And Donald Trump really was very beneficial to the Black community when he was in the White House. I will say I've never seen this man say a racist thing. I think the attacks are fairly... Why is that funny, Charlamagne?
I'm just laughing. It's hysterical. But I mean,
but no, Charlamagne,
people act like there's no such thing as Google, or we don't have TV, we don't have radio.
What is it that you think that he said?
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
This morning, a bitter backlash after President Trump referred to Haiti and African nations as S-hole countries during a meeting on immigration Thursday.
This remark by the President of the United States smacks of blatant racism.
Here's what I'll say.
How was that racist?
Beloved by so many people in this country, and he was friends with everybody.
A lot of celebrities.
Jesse Jackson, by the way,
Please,
his Rainbow Coalition.
He had black friends. That's not going to
No. He let them stay rent free in one of his buildings. The Rainbow Coalition, because he felt like at the time that was a very important thing. You can go pick apart somebody all you want. It is a traditional talking point to attack Republicans, to call them racist. But when you look at the things that he wants for this country, he wants every person to be successful. He wants Black Americans to be successful, Hispanic Americans to be successful, women to be successful. And he worked that way when he was in the White House. And whether you want to talk about actually funding in perpetuity historically Black colleges and universities, whether you want to talk about the First Step Act that allowed 30,000 nonviolent felons to be released from prison, who the 1994 crime bill actually put in prison. These are things that really have, I feel like, spoken to a lot of people, but more so than anything, the economy right now is such that I don't care who you are. It is hurting you, and it is something that he wants to fix. He wants every American to have their shot at the American dream. And, you know, I hate that that is the constant knee jerk is Donald Trump is a racist, Donald Trump is a racist. I can tell you he wants every person to be successful. He'll work for every American equally. He did that the first term when he was president, and he'll do it again.
How do you ask Mexicans and Muslims to ignore a lot of the rhetoric, Haitians to ignore a lot of the rhetoric that he said about them that is dangerous, that is villainous?
Well, I would say anyone who's coming to this country illegally, he's very against, and every American should be very against. If you're an American citizen, Donald Trump doesn't care your religion. He doesn't care what you look like. He will work for you, and he wants to make this country safe for you. We should all want a secure southern border. A lot of the comments get misconstrued that he says about people coming here illegally. They're breaking our federal law to come here illegally. And that should be upsetting to everyone.
But when you make these broad generalizations, you do hurt the Haitian Americans that are here, the Mexican Americans that are here. They all get labeled and villainized and demonized.
Yeah, but you know what? I think people are finally seeing through that. It's very easy to clip up something like that and say like, oh, let's push this out here. When he's referencing these things, he's talking about people who are illegally in our country. He doesn't want us to have 350 people on the terror watch list here. There's a guy who was arrested the other day, an ISIS member who was arrested the other day, who had planned a November 5th election day attack on American citizens. ISIS was eradicated under Donald Trump. We did not even talk about it anymore. He got into the White House and he talked to his top military brass and he said, okay, you guys tell me, how long is it going to take to deal with ISIS? Because ISIS was a big threat. People were constantly talking about it, worried about terror attacks. And they said, sir, it's going to take us a couple years maybe. You know, we have to call the White House every time we want to have some big operation. And he said, how about this? You guys just go do whatever it is you need to do. You don't need to call me. You guys are the experts. I'm not a military expert. You take care of it and let's see what happens. 4 weeks, ISIS was gone. The fact that we're talking about ISIS back in the here in the United States of America, an ISIS member should terrify everybody. The open border has been a disaster. So yeah, he's upset about it. And yes, he says things about people coming here illegally, and rightly so. And you and I, as American citizens, should be the ones absolutely infuriated that this has been allowed to happen.
I agree with you. The border is a disaster. I feel like the border is a bipartisan issue, though, because the border has been terrible under multiple administrations.
Well, we had the lowest border crossings when Donald Trump was in the White House that we've ever had.
Yes, but I still feel like it's going to take some bipartisan legislation, to actually fix things at the border. You can't do executive orders. You can't do that. So how come they can't come to terms on that? And why did Donald Trump shoot down what they said was one of the most comprehensive bipartisan border bills that
if you actually read what was in there, there was like $60 billion for Ukraine. There were so many issues with that. It would allow 1.8 million illegal immigrants into our country a year. It was nonsense, honestly, Charlemagne. And we should all want a secure southern border. That's why Donald Trump built over 500 miles of border wall when he was in office. And, I went down to the border wall and I saw it with my own eyes. I went down to Yuma, Arizona about a month ago. And to talk to the people in those communities, look, they say now every state is a border state because of this. The people who live in Yuma, Arizona are being so negatively impacted. If you're a pregnant woman in Yuma, Arizona, they kind of say, you may not want to plan to have a baby in our hospitals here because they're so overrun taking care of people who cross the border. It's dangerous. They say a third of women are sexually assaulted. The people there told me it's probably closer to 50% who come up over the southern border. So it's terrible for them. But because of them having to take care of all the illegal migrants coming over, you can't even be assured you're going to have a place to deliver a baby in Yuma, Arizona. They say you're going to have to drive either 2 hours to San Diego or 3 hours north to Phoenix. And so having gone and seen it with my own eyes, I'll tell you the most infuriating part to me. You have this border wall that Donald Trump built, and then laying down on the ground where you have a wide open section are pieces of the border wall that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, because they campaigned and said, we will not build another foot of Donald Trump's border wall, it's laying on the ground. And there are people who come right through there. They could stand it up right now if they wanted to, but they won't do it. That is very frustrating, I think, to see right now that we paid for that. It's right there ready to go. And if they're not leaving it on the ground, then they're selling it for, pennies on the dollar.
If the bipartisan border bill was so bad, like you say, how come so many Republicans were for it until Donald Trump intervened to say no?
I don't think Donald Trump intervened at all. He's not in elected office right now, and
he literally told them not to do it.
That I don't think that's true. But I also no. Well, ask Donald Trump yourself. He will tell you.
That's a good question. I wonder for you, how tough is it having the last name?
So as you can see, this entire
because for those of us that care, we've been screaming to the top of the roof, or at the top of the roof, about why they are so concerned and dedicated towards not only marketing Donald Trump as a felon or whatever with these bogus charges, and we know what's happening in New York as far as the appeals court absolutely wringing out, the prosecuting attorneys and things like that, but what they tried to get Trump for as far as overvaluing companies and all of that nonsense. Banks is like, man, what is y'all talking about? We know that was all, focused on trying to make sure that Donald Trump suffers and that people not only are not interested in voting for him, but that possibly he get removed from certain ballots. They tried that too. We also are familiar with a lot of election interference that's going on. Over in California, they find the ballots inside of storm drains. In Georgia, the voting machines is automatically turning the vote blue. It's in Michigan, even here in Michigan, there are certain cities and things that's happening where people are being prosecuted now that they're getting caught voting multiple times. People that work for, the actual, whatever it is, the election people or whatever, they're finessing. And so we got to be very vigilant and careful, because I believe that there are certain sides that are willing to steal this election by any means necessary. And then that moves me all the way back down to Georgia. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar, Fani Willis is the Fulton County District Attorney that also just won her primary a couple months ago. And obviously she'll be voted in for another term because she has the support of the black church and the support of the black community, and they're going to stay on code regardless of whether her integrity is compromised. But she's the Fulton County District Attorney that got caught having an affair with the married guy, but at the same time she was paying him an egregious amount of money while saying that they apparently are taking trips and they would go 50-50. She would just pay him cash. So there's no real record of that. And her integrity is 100% compromised. And it first started even with the YSL trial, right? And that the attorneys for the YSL trial was like, yo, this woman is finessing. And then on top of that, because we know that they filed the 91 charges in order to try to prevent Trump from becoming president of the United States of America, it was revealed through one of those attorneys that the Fulton County DA, Fani Willis, and Andre Dickens, the mayor of Atlanta, went and met at the White House, and it says on the logs, is public information, met with the vice president of the United States of America, even though they're trying to deny it, and this whole story has been absolutely buried. So then, I'm like, why is nobody talking about this? Why is major news outlets not picking this up? Why is this not a big deal? And I've been talking about this way before the election, because we've been covering the migrant crisis. We've been covering everything that's happened at the borders. We've been covering inflation. We've been covering this Fani Willis case, and we've been tying it all together. But again, we didn't have the visibility and the platform to ultimately promote it, right? So now you see Nathan Wade, which was the guy that obviously she was having an affair with. And remember, this all started with his ex-wife basically bringing him to the front of the congregation. Somehow, some way, his divorce proceedings was sealed. And everything is just so fishy. Everything is dirty. Everything is messy. But as you've seen Kamala Harris preaching on the black churches, Jamal Bryant's pulpit, which was an abomination in itself.
Now he got
this is the same man that came out and endorsed Fonnie Willis. So they got one big petri dish of networking. That's what they would call it. Networking, community leaders, political influence, influencers, business people, mayors, all of this stuff. And it all is right there in Atlanta and in Washington, D.C., and across the United States of America, because we don't even know what we don't know. But all of these people are out here doing the things that I don't think that they should be doing. And it's all in the name of, in my opinion, trying to prevent Donald Trump, while also promoting themselves, trying to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president of the United States of America. We all know about his all know about everything that's happened to him. In my personal opinion, I just don't think that it's meant for the devil to succeed. And so that's why you see him surviving. That's why you see him ultimately still in this position. They're trying to get us to vote based off of identity politics. It was revealed yesterday in a bombshell report that Nathan Wade testified that he met with the Department of Justice in the White House. Why would you be meeting with the Department of Justice in the White House? And then he had to take a racketeering case, a racketeering course, to be able to file the charges and participate in trying to bring Trump down with this election interference thing that I'm labeling it, right? It's all messy. It's all silly. It's all dirty, in my opinion. And I believe that the truth ultimately has to come out. You can't keep doing things in the dark and think that it's not going to come to the light. It's not just Diddy that's out here doing wild stuff. It's a lot of these people that's out here doing wild stuff. And I'm wondering, even if the whole list is going to be revealed about who was actually in these freak-offs with Diddy, depending on if they want to release the tapes. Because, man, listen, everybody is powerful. Everybody got influence. Everybody is determining what's happening all around us.
You don't even know.
And everybody is, the people, the ones that are voting based off of identity politics, they're burying their heads in the sand. They're saying, oh, we don't see it. Oh, you know, it's all bad man orange. I'm not voting for a felon and all of this stuff, man. Don't you know that all of this stuff is manufactured against them? And miss me with the racism comments. Because if you can have a whole conglomerate of people that are of color controlling almost what happens inside of the White House and pushing themselves to ultimately be your president or vice president or whatever, miss me with the whole racism thing, because there's never been a person that's more patriotic in my lifetime that I could see than Trump, willing to take a bullet for his country, still run for president of the United States of America, was already rich, but actually wants to do the thing that's in the best interest of the residents of the United States of America, the citizens of the United States of America. And they're going after a white man. So a lot of the premise with what people say racism is to be able to exert power over somebody else, which I don't agree. I think that people can be racist regardless of whether or not they could politically influence or systematically exert power over people. But that's what you see happening in our legislative branches, business communities, and even in our churches.